Hello, everyone. It's Rebecca. I'm just dropping in to say hello. And I always feel like if I don't publish a podcast, like I have to go to the teacher and tell them I didn't turn in my homework. And I know that's not true. And whatever audience is out there and the collective, I kind of see as like my teacher. I feel responsible to be turning stuff in. And so I'm always talking to the audience in my head, like, I'm sorry that wasn't a good episode, or I'm sorry this is late. And I did want to tell you kind of what happened. It's very comical. A couple of weeks ago, right before we went on spring break, I planned to record a podcast, and then I would have one published on spring break when we were on vacation. And I would kind of stay on my own internal schedule. And I lost my voice. I literally, like, for real, just completely lost my voice. Um, yeah. And I was like, that's just not going to happen. I don't know what to do. So, ended up going on vacation, obviously didn't record or publish when we were in the Dominican Republic, which, by the way, was gorgeous and beautiful and everything I wanted it to be. And so then we came back and I was going to record again. And my dad went into the hospital with pneumonia and ended up staying there for a week, which is a whole other podcast that I haven't even recorded yet. So, so I did not get around to recording it. And then I was like, okay, later this week, I'll just be a little bit late recording it. And then again, later that week, I lost my voice, and I thought I was going to get really clever here. I couldn't believe I lost my voice twice in like 2 weeks. So I did a couple of things. I got my kids, my twins, to record what was most easily the most epic and hilarious episode that would have ever been published on this podcast. And we spent an hour doing it. And at the end, I checked, and the recording device was set to my son's Bluetooth headphones for like no reason at all. I have no idea how that happened. I've never paired those headphones to my computer unless he did. And so I was laughing. I was like, this is going to be the best podcast ever. And yeah, it didn't record at all. And that was really demoralizing. And so I tried to salvage things and say, you know what? I've always wanted to check out. I have a system that can actually use my voice and combine it with AI and create a podcast after something I've written. So I've written a couple of essays on the topic of aging parents, and I actually went and found those essays and then went into my software system, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to load this essay and it's going to become my AI voice. I'm actually going to publish an essay I wrote several years ago, and that's going to be really fun. And then ironically, in order to unlock the feature on that software, I had to actually speak into the computer my consent, and I have to say my name and that I know this is happening, and I consent to them using my AI voice and all this stuff. It was like literally part of the software. Like, it wasn't going to develop my AI voice unless I gave it verbal permission, which would have worked if I had had my voice. So I didn't at that time have a voice that actually matched the recordings that I was submitting for it to base my voice on. So, if this sounds like unbelievable, absolutely is unbelievable, because I just remember sitting there in my living room feeling so defeated that we had lost an hour-long recording, probably one of the best ones I've ever done. It wasn't even me, it was my kids. I actually let them host for the day. And then I worked to try to do something else. And you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't work. So please know that I love you and I think about you. Maybe it doesn't matter to you how often I publish, which is fine. For some reason, it matters to me because I'm kind of a rule follower, even though I set my own rules. But anyway, coming up is a real conversation I had with a friend, and because it's a real conversation, it was recorded on my phone in a hallway in a gym behind a volleyball tournament. And so, yeah, there's some background noise, but that's what it's from. I actually recorded 2 conversations, so you're going to hear the first of 2. But the reason we have this podcast, right, is we don't have to have fancy equipment. It doesn't have to be in a studio, because these are actually real conversations between real people talking about real things. So anyway, without more delay, let me just go ahead and get this started. I will see you again soon. Welcome back to another episode of Real Conversations about Aging Parents. This is your host, Rebecca Tapia. I have Mike here with me. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. We're enjoying a volleyball tournament right now. How do you think the girls are doing?
They have improved a lot since the first of the year, so it's been a pleasant sight to see. So,
Good.
yeah,
You said earlier they needed brisket. What did you mean by that?
because they were all getting very tired in that last game, and you could just see the energy of all of them just go.
Yes, exactly. I saw it too. He's not wrong. So I have you here today because I actually know your wife pretty well from volleyball. I know I've met you a few times, but she's talked a lot about your mom.
Mhm.
And I had the opportunity to talk to you about your mom. So before we get into that, can you tell people a little bit about yourself, like where you're from and what you enjoy doing?
Sure. I grew up outside of Houston in a town called Richmond that now is just part of Houston if you go there. But whenever I grew up there, it was 45 minutes to Houston. So we kind of lived out in the country. My parents grew up here in San Antonio. They graduated at Edison High School and then moved to Houston because back then that's where the money was. Growing up, we had an acre and a half, and then we leased like 5 acres and another 10-acre spot. So we had horses and stuff like that, which was one of my favorite things growing up. And my dad worked in a parts department at a dealership, and so cars were another kind of big part of our lives. I remember working with my dad on replacing engines and fun stuff as a young kid, and then as he got older, that kind of quit, but it's still something that I enjoy doing. I have a 65 Mustang right now that I'm working on that we bought from Amanda's uncle, which funny story is that he won it at a Catholic raffle.
Oh, wow. I thought they only did new vehicles, man.
Yeah.
They're dipping into the classics.
So it was apparently a high school project car. So
Cool.
there is some, not quite matching stuff on there.
Sure.
So it's been a lot of fun to do that. But now I've really enjoyed working on that. So that's been my favorite things to do. As my kids have gotten older, I guess we watch a lot of sports now. So it's football with my oldest, who's a sophomore, and then my daughter here that we're at the volleyball tournament for. She's been real fun to watch and just kind of watch as they grow and mature and all that fun stuff. So, yeah.
Well, awesome. I appreciate that. So tell me your story with your mom. I'm going to ask you about your parents. Is your father still living?
My dad passed away 5 years ago.
I'm sorry.
Is it 5 years ago? It's been, I'm trying to think now. Anyway, it's been about 5 years ago. That's one of the fun things about aging is that you can't ever remember.
Oh, you're the aging person now.
Yeah,
okay.
Like,
Yeah.
So he passed away. Actually, kind of back up a little bit. 3 years prior to that, he actually passed out or technically died at church. And they worked on him for about 45 minutes there and on the way to the hospital. And so they did the whole thing where they dropped the body temperature down and saved which helped save brain activity, which learned a lot about that then. So technically,
was it a heart issue or?
It was. That's the only thing that we can figure out. It was either some sort of heart attack or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. So 3 years prior to his actual death was we got to experience that. And then
did he have any deficits after he got recovered?
He did. We noticed a lot of mental.
Can you give me some examples?
I'm just trying to think. I was trying to think of one that it was like he was just slower. Like just whenever he used to be a little bit more quick-witted and then be able to answer stuff faster. But you could just kind of tell that he kind of stayed back a little bit from conversations and wasn't quite as engaged after that. And then just kind of I don't know how to describe it other than just slow. It was just, you couldn't really just have a normal conversation. You could, but it was like his responses were delayed. I don't know. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. But then he passed away. Unfortunately, he passed away at his house, and my mom was out of town and happened to come home, and she found him. So kind of just part of her story that we've recognized is after that, we've kind of recognized it's kind of a little bit of a decline after he passed away.
And what age would your parents have been around that time?
My dad would have been, my mom she was born in 48. So if I could do the math, then she's going to be 77 this year? So yeah, she was, I want to say she was 70 and my dad was about to turn 70. So
okay, so fairly young. Yeah.
Which, based on my family history, my father's one of the longest living members of the family, that his brother died whenever he was 48 or 50 of a heart attack.
And what did he pass away of? Did they decide?
No, they didn't. We just assumed it's some sort of cardiac episode because that's one thing, or a stroke. That's one of the other two things because he had all his stuff that he was ready to go take a shower, and he looked
Oh,
like he
okay.
sat down on the bed that was right outside the bathroom, and that's where my mom found him.
Okay.
He was actually laid down in the bed. So that was kind of a traumatic experience for her to unfortunately find her husband like that.
Now, at that time, did you have any concerns about your mom around that time frame?
Not too bad. We did notice a little bit of repeating stuff, but it wasn't, I guess, as noticeable. One thing I guess I will say is I found that both parents and even other friends of mine that have aging parents and especially with dementia, that's my mom was recently diagnosed with dementia with a suspected Alzheimer's, and just noticed that how they can cover for each other, that it is one will answer for the other if the other one can't remember. So we kind of noticed a little bit of that with mom. Her mom had mental issues that I'm learning about went back way further, even into their childhood. But I do remember my grandmother having dementia and Alzheimer's. I believe it was, well, I guess it was just beginning to figure out what all that stuff was. But
So at the time when your father passed, your mom was maybe had some repeating, but nothing.
yeah, nothing that concerned us.
Okay, gotcha. And now, were they still y'all living in the same city or different cities at that point?
We're living in different cities. My parents lived in Granbury, and then we lived here in San Antonio.
Okay.
And then once he passed away, my older brother kind of took over and kind of helped with all the financial stuff. So I didn't get to learn a whole lot about all of that because he took care of that. But then 3 years ago, 2020. Oh, actually, now it's almost 4 years ago. Now 5 years ago, I'm all kind of screwed up on the dates. Might have been 20.
Time goes fast. Yeah. I know.
Have kids, it'll age you in a hurry.
Yeah.
But then he passed away during COVID and all that time.
Who passed away?
My brother.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, he died at 51, and so
while he was trying to help your mom with everything. Yeah, so my gosh.
He lived up in the Dallas area. He lived in Denton. So, and his job, he was a juvenile probation officer. So he traveled all over the state. So he was able to go check on my mom pretty regularly. Okay. So she was living by herself. And so that seemed well. And he never mentioned stuff, but we, every time we'd go visit her again, it was kind of more of the repeating things and more of the, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It was lots of repeating and then just not being able to we kind of noticed not holding a regular conversation, that you could start on one subject and then she would suddenly switch to another one.
Okay.
And so, or whatever was, when we just kind of took it as, oh, that's what's more important to her at the time. So we just kind of, my sister, my brother, and I, we just kind of blew it off.
Well, I was just going to ask you that. So you lost your dad and then you lost your brother. What other siblings?
I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
Okay. So there's 4 of you.
Yeah, there's 4 of
us.
us.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So once my brother passed away, kind of even noticed a further decline with my mom as far as just.
And she was living alone at this time?
She was living alone, yeah.
Okay.
So she had a friend that would come and check on her quite often, which was very helpful, that lived in the same area. So we didn't have too much concerns.
And she wanted to be at home?
She did.
Okay.
Yeah. This is where she's going to stay. And that's where, mom and dad, they bought the house up there. So that's after my dad's first episode. And so yeah, she was happy. She loved Granbury. It was a small enough town then. It was outside of Fort Worth. But then kind of as the years went on, that Dallas, Fort Worth kind of grew out that way. And so that kind of made us a little bit of concern that, yeah, she was still driving and all that fun stuff. I guess kind of one of the things that we did start noticing that really kind of in the past few years, she's been in San Antonio here for a year now, that we moved her here for a heart valve replacement. But right before that, we were noticing that she was missing doctor's appointments.
Okay, so she was living on her own and wasn't making her own appointments.
And so,
how did y'all find that out?
My sister, we were concerned because one of the doctors, I think my mom actually mentioned that, oh yeah, something's going on with my heart. And so my sister started going to the doctor's appointments. She lives in Lubbock. And so she would actually come down to Granbury to go with them. And so there's a couple of them that they talked about heart valve replacement and some pretty serious stuff that we need to look out for. She also has AFib. And so that was the other big thing that we were concerned about. And so my sister would make appointments, and then not to back up too much, but we just went to the processes of the attorneys, getting the power of attorney, medical power of attorney, all that once my brother passed away. So we could go to these visits with her. And that's whenever she started missing a couple, or the doctor's office would call us and go, is your mom coming
to
the appointment? Or my sister, I know one time was calling to follow up on an appointment. They're like, she didn't come in last week when her appointment was,
Oh, okay.
but she came in today.
Oh.
And they were nice enough to see her.
And I'm assuming just from your knowing her, it's uncharacteristic. When you were
Oh,
younger, did she have organizational issues, or
no,
was she
she was a stay-at-home
on
mom,
time
so she
mostly?
was yeah.
Oh, so very organized, I'm
Yeah,
assuming, yeah.
yeah, we were late for everything, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
but not forgetful.
So that was out of character for her.
No, not at
Yeah.
all. So, yeah, it was kinda really crazy, and so, like I said, the visits that we had, it was every time she was up there, we have talked about moving her for probably 2 years prior, right after my brother passed away. We talked about trying to get her to move either to Lubbock, where my sister was, or down here to San Antonio.
How did y'all have that conversation? How did y'all decide?
We first approached it as, "Come be closer to the grandkids."
Oh, okay.
So
It wasn't, "We're worried about you." It
we're
was,
worried about you because
okay.
with her mom, I do recall, just even though I was fairly young, that was a big stigma, and so she
Okay.
always put forth a really proud face
Yeah.
and everything's okay.
Gotcha.
And so that wasn't much. So we knew that wouldn't quite work to go, "Hey, mom, we're concerned about you." We did bring up our concerns that, "Hey, we don't like you living 4.5
Sure.
hours away from any of us." But we then we did that. We tried the grandkids approach. "Hey, we'd love for you to be close to the grandkids." And she was all on board. And so we were like, "Okay, great." And so then I think I brought in a realtor or something to come look at her house. And oh, she was excited about that. And then she called me the very next day and said, "Nope, I'm staying here. I like it here. I'm fine. I like all my neighbors," and would repeat about how great her neighbors were and how great the little cul-de-sac that she lived on was and how everybody waved at each other. And so, honestly, that kind of became a little bit of a running joke around with my brother and
At
my
least they
sister.
wave at each other.
Yeah, that they waved at each other, but mom.
They don't take you to the doctor, but they wave at you.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
do you know their names? No, I sure don't.
Yeah.
That type thing. And so that was kind of a big concern. And then, like I said, she did that a couple times, and then the bigger concerns also that we had were she.
So y'all didn't go through with it? That was,
No, we didn't go through.
she
it
was
at
able
that
to
time.
squash it?
And
Okay.
so she squashed it, and so it was like, darn it. Okay, how do we now approach this?
Yeah.
Because we were concerned. And then and then there was a couple times where we all said, "Okay, mom, we're all coming to visit you," because she always says, "Oh, I want you to come visit. I want you to come visit." But then every time that we were like, "Okay, we're coming to visit you," and then, "Oh my gosh, my stomach hurts," or "I don't think y'all should come," and blah, blah, blah. And she'd come up with multiple excuses. That happened 2 or 3 times.
What did y'all think that was from?
I don't really know. I think there was some anxiety, and then she claims that, well, we assume she has IBS. And so that would be her
go-to.
out
Yeah.
would be, "Oh, my stomach hurts, and I don't want to get anybody sick." And so I know my family, we bought that once. And then the next time we're going to camp, not stay at her house, because my brother and sister were going to stay there with their
Yeah.
families. And so we got a camping spot. And so we were pulling our travel trailer and we went, "Sorry, mom, we're still coming."
Right.
And then whenever we got there, it was almost like, "Oh, I'm so glad y'all came," and everything
Oh.
else. So it was really interesting. It was kind of eye-opening then. And then I guess a year or so ago, again, kind of going back to that heart deal, is she had a cardiologist appointment and she was having fainting spells. She would tell us that, "Yeah, sometimes I just have to go sit down and just be still by myself," but she fell down. And so that got us really concerned, especially living by herself. And, could she hit her head and something else worse could happen? So we basically then approached it whenever they talked about heart surgery. And then I happen to have a heart valve issue myself. And so I have a really good cardiologist here, and who happens to be one of the specialists, or one of the main specialists in the country for heart valve replacement. And so that was my big pull to say, "Mom, you're going to come here because you're going to come see my cardiologist."
When you say come here, you mean come live with you?
We
Or you meant just come down for a doctor visit?
come down. You approached it as come down for a doctor's visit, and
Okay.
then you'll probably stay with us for a little bit.
Okay.
And then as we kind of realized how much more serious it was, then I and my sister did also come down. We looked at a couple senior living places, not assisted living, just independent care. And so found a Dante off of Northwest Military, and really liked it. And just they happen to have a place, an opening. So kind of took it as a God thing that let's go ahead and snag this. And so we went and got an apartment before the cardiologist appointments that started here.
Can I roll back there for just
Yeah.
a second? So when you said you noticed it was a lot more serious, what do you mean? Like,
She,
what would you and your sister like mention to each other?
the fact that she mentioned to my sister that she got lost on her way to a store that she would always go to.
So she was disclosing more.
Yeah,
Y'all were
she-
around her more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she would disclose it to my sister. She never disclosed it to me, which is always kind of a funny thing. What she tells and who she tells. And then I'm trying to think of a friend in Granbury that he may have even mentioned something to us that
Okay, something
something
off.
didn't seem right.
Okay.
So
you convinced her to come down for an appointment and got her an apartment.
pretty much.
That's pretty
Yeah. So
awesome.
we just kind of did it. And
Okay.
I mean, by this time we realized that her short-term memory was going pretty quick, that she would forget things that, we would say, or, hey, mom, we got this coming up or that coming up. And then she would call us, maybe even the next day or something, go, oh, so y'all are coming. We're like, oh, no, that's in a couple of weeks. Or my sister would come and visit, and then she wouldn't remember that my sister even came to visit her in Granbury. So we really started noticing that decline.
So you kind of use that appointment opportunity and then somehow got into this apartment situation. Gotcha.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
I think she thought it was a temporary deal. And I guess just to kind of, since we're talking about aging parents and experiences, it was real interesting is that her apartment wasn't ready when we first brought her down. I think it was a Sunday and it would be ready on a Wednesday or something. And so she did stay with us for a couple days. And so after the first day, she pretty much just thought that that's where she was going to stay.
Yeah.
And I guess kind of a funny anecdote, because you got to laugh a little bit at this stuff, is that, she told my wife that, the housekeeper really doesn't do a good job at this place.
Right.
Which, we're the housekeepers.
Right. And actually, that's the first time I heard about your mom. Amanda was telling me that her mother-in-law came and was disparaging the housekeeper. I figured we might have something to talk about then.
So that was always a fun experience.
Can you talk a little bit about the senior living center? How hard was it to find? How much did it cost? Like, was it an easy decision? Was it hard?
It was hard because we were honestly trying to determine, because of the different levels of care that there are now, which I didn't realize all this. Growing up, we knew a nursing home.
Right.
And so that's what we were like, okay, we knew she wasn't quite ready for that, but we knew that she wasn't ready really to have her own apartment.
Yeah.
So senior living place that we found it's independent living. The great thing about that is she has her own apartment. And then they also have a big dining hall. And so included in her rent is, electricity, water, cable TV, all the utilities, but also she gets 2 meals a day.
Okay.
So she can go down there and she didn't have to cook. Yeah, because that was the other concern that we did have about her, is that I think her diet pretty much consisted of Campbell's soup and Subway sandwiches.
Okay.
So we also noticed that she was losing a lot of weight.
Oh, okay.
And so that was another concern that we did have that got us to move her up here or down here. But at the senior living at Dante, they have independent care, and then they have assisted living, and then they have a memory care.
Okay.
And so that was kind of one of the things that helped lean us towards that way, was they had the different levels. And so that way it wouldn't be, at least in our mind, wouldn't be quite as traumatic.
Yeah.
Of moving from spot to spot.
And you'd have somebody else telling you, hey,
Exactly.
Now is the time to do that.
And so far we've been really pleased with it. She's in independent care. We do have a lady, she does get visited by a third-party service twice a day to make sure she takes her medicine, and then invite her down to go do lunch or breakfast and dinner. So that kind of another set of eyes, like you said.
Did y'all have to commit to a certain term, like a year or 6 months or?
No, that's a great, at least with this particular one it's month to month.
Month to month, okay.
Yeah. And so the one big shocking thing, I guess, for your listeners, is they have an activity fee, is what they call it, like is a deposit. And so that was $6,000 right off the bat, just to be able to
engage,
quote, and secure so basically like a security deposit.
Okay.
But it's also, they use it as like moving in and all this other stuff. And so we're paying, it started off at like $3,900, and then even over this year that she's been here has increased to almost $4,000.
Okay. Oh wow, that's significant.
Yeah. So
somebody who's on like fixed income Social Security would obviously not be able to live there.
And
Yeah.
so we may have to find a less, yeah. I'm sure there's other places.
But you're month to month and it's
Work to
working
month,
for now.
yeah.
And then do you have an idea if you were to go into memory care, the cost increase? Because I think
5,600 is what we're told.
okay.
And so, memory care. I'm sorry. The next level is assisted living. And what we've learned is in assisted living, you can live as independently. They want you to live as independently as you want, but they have services that you can add
Right.
on. So I
Like
think
showers or laundry stuff.
laundry and just basic care. And so far, that's what the doctors and the stuff has told us, is that when she reaches that point, that's whenever we really need to look at the next level up, when she can't take care of herself. And for what I understand, that was, it's like $5,600 there to Dante, and then you add the services.
Oh gosh. Okay. I mean, you can get very easily into 6 figures a year especially in memory care level.
We're thinking everything we've heard is around $10,000
a month.
And
okay.
So kind of all of our decisions are, when we sold the house, how much is she getting? Oh, look, that's 12 months worth of, that's
it comes into months, right?
Yeah. 7 months. So she worked for the county, so she has a good retirement plan and Social Security that's covering her costs right now, which is nice. We recently just sold her house in Greenberry, which that was
How much did she participate in that? Was she aware? How did y'all handle? Did y'all tell her?
We did tell her. She was excited whenever we told her that hey, because she came to the realization that she likes it here in San Antonio.
Okay, so what did she like about it?
She likes that we're close.
Okay,
that's the biggest thing.
She liked the support. Yeah, the grandkids, I'm sure.
Yeah, 5 minutes away, so we can come see her and all that. She does think that she's lived here for 5 years.
Okay.
She told the doctor that the other day. She went to the dentist, and my wife Amanda's been helping out a lot with that type of stuff. And so that's been probably the biggest struggle for us, is the fact that having to correct your mom is tough. Whenever she thinks that it's been 5 years and you have to tell her, tell the doctor kind of real quietly, it's been since April.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, have I had any surgeries? Oh, no, I've been really, really healthy. Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about your hip replacement and, your scoliosis and stuff like that. So
how do you work this out with your brother and sister now? Do you feel like y'all share the, responsibilities pretty well? Do y'all have conflict? Do you feel like it all goes pretty easy?
Originally, it was supposed to be that I would take care of the financial side and, make sure mom's money was good, sell the house, all that stuff. And my sister was going to handle the medical.
Okay.
She's in pharmaceutical sales. So we just said, hey, that's your point.
Yeah.
My youngest brother is, I don't know, he's the baby of the family, and we kind of tend to still treat him that way.
The dynamic never goes away.
Yep. So we really, I guess in my mind, I was really hoping that he would be more of the ones that would come and visit her more often and see that. But he lives in Houston, and he married into 4 kids and has one of their own. So they have 5 kids total.
Yeah.
So they're a little strapped for money is what they tell us. So what we've, it's kind of come down to me and my wife.
Right, because
take care of it all. So
because we always talk. Proximity is 90% of it, right?
Sure.
You're right next to it. So
we started with the medical, with the heart valve replacement, and it being my doctor, and then luckily my wife works part-time, so she has those days that she can go take mom to the doctor's appointments and stuff like that. So
so this may be off limits, but I want to ask about that because this comes up a lot, right? So you're married before, obviously, mom moves in. How long have y'all been married?
It will be, 2007. So do the math real quick. So 18 years.
Yeah. You're gonna. I might have to edit that out.
I'm like, no, I always was going to say 20. 17 years.
17 years, confidently.
Yes.
And so, how do y'all negotiate that? Like, is there a discussion that says, "Hey, mom's gonna move in next door," or you're gonna take her to the appointment, or is it an assumption just by your values, or is it? Because there's a negotiation for all new tasks, right?
So I'm just trying to think of how that did go down. Is that I guess we recognized, my sister looked at a place in Lubbock and liked it, and so we're like, okay, we'll move her there, and it was less expensive up in Lubbock. But then when we started talking about the different services and stuff that were available, especially just medically, San Antonio just made a better sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that started and kind of that transition. And then my wife honestly volunteered to, you're working, quote unquote breadwinner. And so, yeah, I can take mom,
Yeah.
to these appointments. And so it just kind of has evolved since then. Just that, fortunately or unfortunately, that's kind of
Just absorbed into
it's
the
absorbed.
absorbed into the
I
family.
mean, it was a big discussion as far as moving mom down here. We knew that we were going to have to take a lot of the brunt of her care.
So that seemed clear once she actually relocated here. Okay.
For sure. And so,
Okay.
yeah, it was, and I guess that's probably one of the internal strifes with maybe between with myself and my brother and sister. I'm sure they feel it a little bit, but that, yeah, we have taken on everything. They do say, oh, yeah, we're going to come down and help. And I guess the bigger help was, hey, just come and experience what mom's going through. So then that way,
Right.
whenever we have a discussion, you guys kind of know what's going on. But they're like, oh, no, we're going to go take her to do this, and we're going to go take her to do this, and we're going to go take her to do this.
Right.
Just as far as fun stuff on the weekend, because usually that's the only time they can come. And then they get even a little frustrated because mom's like, A, she's not really recognizing them now. So
Yeah.
it's starting to come to that point. And then B, they expect her just to be able to go and go and go. And so, but what we've learned with Alzheimer's and dementia is that the concept of time is really messed up. Like I said, she thinks she's been here 5 years.
Yeah.
We noticed at Christmas time, she didn't, man, I just can't believe we never decorated before since all these years I've lived here. So, but yeah, it was that. So whenever they come down, it tends to be a little bit more go, go, go. But for the most part, my wife and I have just kind of, so I don't know what the right word is, just come to the realization that we're going to be the caregivers for mom, and whenever they can come down, we're just going to be thankful that they can come down.
How do you feel about that?
It's frustrating at times. And I wish they would take on more, or at least just come visit her. I honestly, the good side of Mike is actually feel sorry for them, is that they're missing all of what possibly are the last few years of mom's life, especially the fact that she doesn't quite remember them. And so, like I said, the good side of Mike feels sorry for them that they were missing out on them. Probably the completely selfish side of Mike is like, dadgummit, I really could use some help. And it would be great that if you guys could come down more often just to even give us a day break or whatever. Or mom loves having visitors, so come do that. So it's not always falling to us. So, yeah, like I said, it's tough.
Yeah. So I always ask this question, which is, I know it may be an assumption in your life that she needed help and so you helped her.
Mhm.
But I've interviewed a lot of people on the podcast that came to that decision and decided that they couldn't or wouldn't help for a variety of reasons. So I'm wondering what it is about you or her that sort of made that decision. I don't know if that's a fair question, but it's like, when you're in it, you're like, of course you help your mom.
Right.
But I'm also very interested in how people actually make that decision. Is it who she is? Is it who you are? Is it both of you?
It's a little bit of who we are. And it also credit a lot to our faith is that, I mean, Jesus says that, the best way that you can love someone is to lay down your life for them. And so this is just our way of serving our mom. Kind of go back and she served me for at least 18 years while I was at the house. So, come back and reserve that way. I think it's just also I'm kind of the type of person that whenever I see something that needs to be done, I just go and do it. I think my wife is also that way. And so whenever we just see something that needs to be done, we just do it and don't ask questions, kind of jump in and then figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how it went.
Is there any element with your dad being gone? Like, do you feel like if he can't be there, then that's something?
Oh, the protection wise? Yeah. My dad definitely instilled that in both my older brother and I quite a bit. I'd say my younger brother too, but to a different degree. As the more kids you have,
it's insurance policy.
The less time you have for them. So, but yeah, no, I saw it with my brother really trying to take care of my mom and, take care of his own family. And then whenever he passed away, just kind of that, I'm going to call it the burden, the load. I don't know what the right word is for, but being the oldest, kind of just got to do that.
Yeah.
And so I know Amanda's also the oldest, so she definitely has a lot of that taking on. So we thought it would be a little bit more sharing, but we realized that, we kind of come to the conclusion that it's us now.
It is. It is.
And they can come for visits. So it's tough at times. So yeah. And like I said, seeing your mom, you go visit her for a little bit and then she calls back within a couple hours. Oh, I thought you guys were going to stop by.
Yeah.
And so it's Alzheimer's and stuff like that. It's not fun.
I've seen some people have a notebook, like a sign in. Be like, did you check the sign in sheet, Mom?
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, a day and a time. That's how you get your credit
Your
there.
credit there, yeah. So, but
Well, you've been really candid. I'll give you one more question. I appreciate your time. If you sat next to somebody on a bus or a plane and you just met them and they said, look, they're kind of at the beginning of where you were a couple years ago. If you had to share 3 things with them, just words of wisdom or lessons learned or things that you think went well or poorly, what would you tell them?
educate yourself about whatever the disease is that they have. We're trying to learn as much as we can about Alzheimer's and dementia. One of the best things that a buddy of mine, whose dad is also experiencing it, he gave me it was a short little, I think it was even just a little 8-page book called Planet Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay.
And that was really insightful as far as just, we would get frustrated when Mom would repeat herself. We'd get frustrated when Mom wouldn't do this. And then just that book just kind of helped us realize that they're not doing it on purpose. They don't know. And the other thing, a part of that book is that, I guess we kind of think of like our kids. You teach them and they grow and they learn. But with aging parents, it's the reverse. And so you can't just teach them, oh, well, come on, Mom, figure out your schedule. Why can't you do that? And so that was probably the biggest thing, is educate yourself on that. Just find these little books that kind of give you those little nuggets. Patience is a lot. And sometimes don't take it too seriously. I know it's tough when you're parenting your own parent, that this role reversal, it's not easy. So especially if you already still have kids at your house and raising them, you feel like you're kind of raising two different folks. And then while at the same time also trying to be respectful for your parents. And that's been one of the biggest struggles for me. And then I was going to the other thing is, I think that you've got to have some sort of faith-based, Jesus in your life, basically, because that's the only way that I feel like I could get through this. Is that I got somebody I can pray to. I can have hope. We're doing a Bible study on Revelations, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of scary stuff in there, but in the very end, guess what? We win. And so, every tear will be dried and every heart will be mended. There will be no more sicknesses, and we'll all be healthy in heaven and see each other. So that's the big hope that I have. I'd be saying the 3 things I would say is educate, and then don't take it too seriously sometimes. And then also just a faith that you can have hope in something outside this world. So.
Well, Mike, thank you. I know you sharing helps a lot of people that listen all over the world, and I appreciate you sharing. And I'm going to ask for your prediction on this next volleyball game.
Who are we playing?
Right. We'll start there.
Did you get food? Did they
Okay.
get food?
Did they get the brisket?
Yeah, right.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.